My real animosity was towards the system, and it was. I was angry. Like, I was angry at the judge, angry at everybody. There were so many cards that just fell not in our favor throughout this.
This is a prime example of someone that is going to come into their calling. At the end of the day, it'll be impact that makes him so much more deadly, gives him so much more opportunity, and creates so much more happiness and fulfillment. And unfortunately, my friend, most people will never get near this version of himself. And if someone could rise past this, there's endless possibilities for your life.
You have a taste that other people don't taste because they haven't touched that low or been in that circumstances.
Vulnerability is a superpower because it quickly bridges the gap to trust. And when you have trust, it's important to be a really strong human that has a lot, like you're willing to die for the shit that is right in life. And those are the people that change the world.
Hey, welcome to Man on a Mission. We are especially grateful today, Eric and I, because we're with a guest that we know personally right here in our local market. Remarkable human being, a young man with incredible potential. And wait until you hear this story, because when he gave it in our local mastermind group right on Lake Coeur d'Alene, man, I was just weeping. People were deeply moved, and so many people after Alex for the first time really told this story, said it was one of the best talks I've ever heard in their life. And not to put pressure on you, Alex, to give a talk on a podcast, but man, we're just honored to be with you today. Alex's background is remarkable. We'll let him get into it.
And I'd say top 5 for me too.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of public speakers. I've been around the block. I've been doing this stuff, investing in this world for years now. And what's crazy is he had an opportunity to take advantage of the situation where our group provides, where you can essentially do your own TED Talk. And he stepped up, never done this before, never told a story before. It was top 5 in my life for sure, undeniable.
Yeah.
Which was cool to go through all the bumps in his story. It was really impactful.
And even I knew Alex. I knew you before you.
Me too. It's all right.
I don't know why I'm looking at the camera anymore, but I
had no idea.
I knew you before, so I heard fragments of it. But it was beautiful to get to just experience the depth of that story, having met you before. Alex, just in terms of by way of introduction, he'll get into that. We don't want to leave a stone unturned, but into a real estate investor, raising capital, coaching people in real estate.
Yeah, he's doing well.
He's been an actor. He's done many things. Has a beautiful daughter. Look at
him.
Let's
go.
He's gorgeous. He's got style.
Tatted up. All the ladies gotta love Alex. You know, and he's just one of those guys.
He's an artist at heart. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But anyway, Alex, thanks for doing this with us, man. We're so honored to.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun
to get to interview you. We'll see where it goes, bro.
First and foremost, I just have to extend my gratitude to you guys. I'm so blessed. I know the caliber of men and women that have sat in this chair before me, man. So I'm just, I'm honored to be here and share my story. And as I've touched on before, this is all sort of new, stepping into my light, stepping into the power. And it's like a lot of that is, I owe that to you guys and to, a lot of my other coaches and mentors along the way. And so I'm just grateful to be in this seat, and happy to add value however I can, bro.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome.
Like really cool. I still have chills over it. I went home that day that he did his talk, and I said, dude, Jeanette, my wife, I said, bro, this is crazy. Like, I had no idea. I've been breaking bread with Alex for a long time now. I love him. He's great. Great energy, great passion, tons of potential. I saw potential from day one. One of the gifts of what I do now is I'm constantly with someone where it doesn't matter what level they're winning at. Oftentimes, there's so many chips left on the table that I can see, and I knew that was the case with Alex, but I didn't know how many chips were left on the table until he did that talk. And then once I knew the talk, I said, holy fuck, this is great. Meaning, like, he had to go through hell and back to be able to have someone like me and all these barbarians in the marketplace actually say, like, oh my God, that was impactful. Like, it sucked because he had to give something up for it to be great. And that's what's hard about this. Like, we're saying this is great, but it wasn't. It was hell. It was so much hell, in fact, that I don't know how you get through it. But here he is today, and he's finally turned this story, this painful story, into progress. And now that I know that, all I see is a guy that could be on the biggest stages in the world, impacting millions of people, like Ed Milet-like levels, someone we all look up to in this room, someone I worked with. I see you at that level and really leveraging the power of this story. So it's really cool to have an early role, Matt, in this young man's life. Yeah, isn't that sick?
Yeah.
Like, if you're not, you know what I mean? Like, if you're not, like, excited to try to help other people win, like, Eric, what a wasted life.
Yeah, I'm
stoked over
Eric
this.
Literally gets super jazzed about
Yeah.
people's potential cracking them open.
That's
Well,
right.
not only to be a part, but to be a major catalyst for that and to watch
cool.
that
Thank
and
you.
to be, in our sidelines. And so, yeah, man, you can imagine what that means to me to hear that coming from you guys, people who I look up to, and you guys inspire me. I'm so intimidated by you. So I didn't even make eye contact, I don't think, when I made the speech at Man on a Mission. So to hear that response and that feedback, man, it's like, that's not something I'm going to take lightly. I'm going to take that all the way.
Bro, it means
So
a
that's
lot.
why I'm here. That's why I reached out. I asked, hey, can I come? Let's keep talking.
All day.
More,
This is already on my mind.
Yeah.
Let's start the journey of momentum now. It says "Forged in Fire" on your neck. You got a tattoo that has two swords going through it. It says "Forged in Fire."
Yeah.
For you, this is absolutely true that you were forged in fire. And most people wouldn't have come out on the other side the way you did. And that's where your power and strength is, your ability to impact. And what's crazy is we know the story that he's about to shed some light on. And in fact, the other person that's a pivotal person in this story didn't make it out the other side, man. So I don't want to foreshadow too much here. Where do you start with such a powerful story? Alex, when you were 15 years old, your life was changed forever. And I know this is going to be hard for some people to hear. This might be hard for you to tell. But this work is necessary because there's a lot of there's a lot of kids out there. There's a lot of people that they're making bad choices. They're getting caught up in the wrong things. Like, your ability to impact them is going to be profound. So I encourage you to dive in, go all in on this shit.
Yeah.
You're 15 years old, man.
Themselves to things, yeah.
What was Alex like before the bad event in your life took place? You were still a kid. Walk me through it.
Yeah. So leading up to that, I was a only child, never had any siblings, didn't even have really cousins growing up. So I kind of always had this spotlight on me. And I think that, along with just some genetic badassery, has led to me sort of being a man on a mission at a young age. I was always driven. I just never wanted to conform. I saw people around me as small-minded, like even my teachers and stuff. I was just like, this can't be. There's got to be more to life. Like, how do we just go out and win? And even my parents, bless them, they're amazing, but they kind of stayed in their lane their whole life. Never really like went after big goals, and I wanted that from a young age. So I was doing things. I was starting businesses. I was playing sports. I was,
As a kid.
This is middle
Teenager,
school.
yeah.
Middle school.
Yeah, you're hustling.
Started my first business in middle school, a t-shirt company. It was like a skateboarding clothing line.
Dude.
And, I was printing shirts, had a screen press and all the designer stuff at my house, and I go sell it at school. I had my landscaping business by the time I was, 14. And so I had I was buying my own cars. And then with that came
That's sick.
came the party side of it too. I was indulging in everything.
'Cause
I
you're
was
a baller.
partying, I was living
That's
the
what
life.
ballers do.
I was having fun. I wanted to sort of get the most out of life. And so I was getting in trouble, but I was riding this line of also like I was in honors classes, and I was like, I was
Just winning.
top wrestler, top on my football team, and so. That dog was in me from a young age, and then like you touched on, something sort of came and abruptly, intertwined. Should I just jump into that?
Yeah.
Or intervene.
Tell the story,
So
bro.
the intervention was when I was 15. My best friend and I were charged with rape. Started with an accusation of rape, which led to charges and imprisonment, and the unfortunate suicide of my best friend and co-defendant.
Yeah, build up to that. You're 15, man. Walk me through it.
So let's set the stage. Yeah, I was 15. I was more sexually active than I should have been at that time. So it's like we all have to take accountability for our part in everything, So I was living a life that was, I could have gotten an STD. I could have done whatever. I'd had all the talks. I'd been given the talks at school or from my dad, and I wasn't listening. I was,
I was having sex at 15.
yeah. And
I get it.
me and my buddy, there's no question we were all three in that room at that party. It's what happened in that room that we all disagreed on.
So there's a girl, and then you and your best friend.
Me and my best friend.
You're 15. How old is she?
She was 16, 15 or 16, same age.
Okay.
Had never met, stranger. We were at a party, and
One thing led to another.
one thing led to another. We ended up in that room, and then it was about 2 months. It was about 2 or 3 months later. So I'm sitting in Spanish class. It was like sitting in Spanish class, and the principal and the school officer knock on the door, and everyone knew it was like for me, because normally I was getting in trouble for something, whatever it was, like smoking pot in the parking lot or truancy or skipping school, whatever. So everyone kind of oohed and awed, and they're like, we need to see Alex. I walk down, kind of make the familiar walk of shame down to the the office, and then they sit me down and they're like, hey, you're not in trouble. We just want to talk to you about something. There was a situation that happened with one of your friends. We caught him. I think they said they caught him smoking pot or something, and they needed my testimony, and they needed me to go to the police station. I was just like too dumb and naive and probably scared at the time to like ask, wait, what? Like, what are you saying? What do you need me to do? You need me to leave school abruptly and go to the police station?
It was a setup to get
Well,
you there?
so they get me out. He gets me. I think what they were doing was trying to, not embarrass me in front of everyone when they arrested me. What they did is they got me out to the car, and he said, put your hands behind your back. And I said, what? And he said, you're under arrest. And I said, for what? And he said, we'll talk about it when we get to the station. So they didn't tell me what I was being arrested for. I didn't know my charges. I got cuffed and put in the back seat of this car. I get to the police station, and I see my mom. She's already there, and she's bawling hysterically. She's like, don't say a word. Don't say a fucking word until we get an attorney. I'm just like, what's going on? What did I do? Like, what have I done?
You were literally blanking.
They put me in this interrogation room for, what felt like hours. This part got a little foggy because it's like this part of everything, because I was in such shock in the moment of like, what's going on? Adrenaline, everything. Dude. Bells going off. And what they did was they interrogated me, and they were trying to get me to fess up to this, but I didn't know what they were trying to get me to fess up to. So they're asking questions like, hey, so where were you on this night? And I was like, I don't remember. I don't quite remember. Like, what? Can you give me more details? Well, do you remember committing a crime? Do you remember doing this? Do you remember? And I was like, man, I'm not. It's not landing. Like, what do you want? What am I here for? So eventually, I see Chad's mom, or no, they did. First, they told me I was They eventually, maybe after an hour, they're like, you're being charged with rape. I asked who said from who, and they wouldn't tell me. They said, we can't tell you. She's protected. And I said, I don't know what to tell you. I can't. I never raped anybody. I don't know what to say. I need like more information. I want to help you get to the bottom of this. I see Chad's mom, and then kind of the light bulbs. I was like, oh, I know exactly.
So stop in that moment in your mind. Undeniable. No, this is incorrect. This was all consensual. This was two kids having fun with
100%. Looking back, there was no question that any three of us could have felt maybe uncomfortable or out of our element at any point, but it was never.
You're all children.
There was never any coercion. There was never any force of any kind.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but I also knew it was a complete stranger that, we all took place in this event that happened that night, and then we all kind of went our separate ways. And now 2 months later, we all have conflicting stories. And I understood. I was like, okay, well, let's get to the bottom of it. Like at that time, I almost was relieved. I was like, oh, I know who it is. I didn't rape her. Like, let me explain.
This is a misunderstanding.
Oh yeah, we'll get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
An hour goes by. I'm explaining my testimony. They book us and charge us. They charge us and book us. I guess Chad had come in before me, so when I got to juvie, he was already there. And I don't remember the sequence of events that led up to them deciding to charge us. And again, it was hearsay versus hearsay.
The burden of proof is tricky in this situation. But you are a young boy.
But how do you just let someone walk when you don't know? Yeah, when you don't know the reality.
I get it, bro. I do.
And so we go. That was my first time ever in jail. I'd never been to jail. I mean, I was a shit stick, so to speak. But I'd never spent a night in juvie. And now I'm here. I don't really understand my charges. I don't understand what I'm facing. Like it was all very. You could tell this was new to everyone involved. Like this was Little Old Coeur d'Alene, 2008.
Even the cops.
Yeah. And they're like, and I didn't really understand the accusations, like, because they were kind of leaving it on me to just to fess up to this thing that I didn't do. And so it was like, well, what did she say? Well, we can't tell you that, blah, blah. And then now here I am in jail. I'm like, okay, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
So the next day they come to my cell and say, hey, pack your shit. You're going to adult jail. You're being charged as adults. So they're pulling from juvie. Yeah, you're being charged as adults. And then what that did was it unlocked the ability for them to blast everything all over the media. So we had all these articles. By the time we got out of juvie, cameras were going off. Cameras, news vans everywhere, flashing. They shuttle us in this van separately, obviously.
Why did they make that decision?
I think at the time, I think I touched on this a little bit in the speech, is that this was a year and a half after the Joseph Duncan case. So Joseph Duncan had abducted like several children, murdered them, and
in this area,
in Coeur d'Alene, and same jurisdiction, same courthouse, and it, because again, to do it so quickly without any sort of evidence, they hadn't done a rape kit, they hadn't gotten witness statements, nothing. It was
There's
just
no
next
evidence.
Day. And what we believed, it was this. They wanted to get their narrative out as quickly as possible, that, hey, these are some bad kids, but we've got them.
Public
They're in
opinion.
custody, And it really, that part of it really sabotaged, you know, a lot of, because when we got out, so we get to
Jail.
Kootenai County.
Yeah.
They can't house us in public housing and general population because we're under 18. So now the system's in their own predicament where, hey, we've got these juveniles, but we can't put them in general population. So they keep us in booking. We're housed in bookings. We're there for like maybe a week while we're going to bail hearings. Our bail gets set. Parents bail us out. Same thing. We get out news vans.
Was it a heavy bail?
It was $100,000, which seemed pretty small, honestly, for you know,
Okay.
for what they were trying to come after us with.
Yeah.
And I don't think I knew up to this point that I don't think I knew at this point that I was facing life. I don't think it was until
Oh my God.
it wasn't until, you know, so we get out, now we're faced with, okay, what do? We, you know, my parents, Chad, his parent, you know, he didn't have the support system I did. They got public defenders. My parents went and hired these fancy, high-paid litigators.
Did your parents have money?
Yeah, I mean, my dad's side of the family did. Yeah, he tapped into the fund and was like, whatever it takes, you know, let's throw money at the situation. And that sort of backfired. We'll get to that later. But when you have, you know, when you have a kid proclaiming his innocence and then a hotshot attorney and then a victim saying, hey, but I'm a victim, it kind of backfires.
It polarized the opposite direction.
No.
Yeah.
And because he just wanted to fight, litigate, object, and it's like we're just here to like
Get the truth.
prove that get to the truth. We're not trying to like sabotage
Defame
her life
people.
or you know.
Yeah, we're
and
not trying to rip her apart or
Yeah, and so then there was, you know, we get out. It's like, do we go back to school? How do we integrate? Are people going to support? You know, by the time we got our phones back, there was, you can imagine, just thousands of texts, people sending us our mugshots on national television. What is this shit? You're on national television. I'm like, I don't even know where to start. Eventually, just like,
dude.
And it was like 90% support, 90% like, we know you never do this shit. What the hell's going on? And then 10% like, dude, what the fuck? Like, what is this? And me having to explain. Then finally, I was like, all right, we just need to unplug.
Did anyone in your friend circle know this girl? She a complete random.
No one
stranger?
knew her, but there was witnesses that were there that night. I mean, so during trials, we had witnesses brought in.
Yeah.
You know, there was character references on both sides and stuff like that, but we didn't have, no one personally knew her prior to this, or leading up to it.
Yeah. So she didn't go to your
Actually,
school?
that's not true. Chad's sister. They were good friends.
Yeah.
That's why she was there. It was Chad's house. And there was a bunch
So there's
of
a
people
link.
there was a bunch of people that night. And then the reason she was there is she's Chad's, and Chad's older sister was there that night. She was there. She didn't get told that some crime took place that night.
Yeah.
It wasn't until 3 months later that all of a sudden a crime took place.
It all broke open. Yeah.
So
because if she would have complained on night 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to 30, 40, 50, 60
acting
days
strange even that night of
Yeah,
like,
there
hey,
was-
what's going on?
but-
Was there any indication?
But her story didn't come out till later. And again, that does not mean that someone is not telling the truth at all.
100%.
It doesn't mean that at 100%. But bottom line is these are just the facts.
It felt like for me, it was like, okay, clearly the truth is going to come out. Like either the system's going to kind of figure this out, or it's going to be
you'll win.
word against word, and like there's no evidence. So what do? We have to default to
evidence.
But so many nuances happened in the 18 months of hearings,
Litigation,
which that in itself created I went into a whole whirlwind of depression, self-sabotage, which then also played a part in my judge's decision. Inevitably.
You fell apart.
You were already
You were a
a
kid.
mischievous teenager to begin with, let's say, or enterprising.
Yeah,
guy.
they're gonna
And
teach you a
this
lesson.
I mean, think of how when you're that age,
I can't
you
imagine.
you get word someone doesn't like you, and you're emotionally out for the evening or something. Like, it's such a vulnerable social, psychological, developmental age.
I can imagine.
Like, I mean, there's so many. If we had 5 hours, like the depth of one's identity, sense of self is so tenuous, and it's being formed in a social
Can't even
fabric.
imagine.
Like, it's called healthy narcissism. Like you
know what's
study
crazy?
adolescence. You're supposed to be socially narcissistic. Like, what do they think of me? Where do I place in this realm?
I get it.
And I mean, God, my mind's just going like, how does your
And any
how
of
do you
us, this
psychologically
could
just
happen to
handle
anybody.
that?
This could happen to any of us. Bottom line, could happen to me. And I'm trying to put myself in your shoes. And it's funny, I think the only place of real support if I put myself in your shoes, I would have been for my dad. Of all people, he's the one guy I know would have been there for me no matter what. But it's really easy for me to imagine that people would have turned their backs on me.
There was a family divide that took place. You know, my aunt, because it's hard. You know, even even your family, they're seeing the national news headlines too.
Right. The narrative.
Right. And it's like my aunt, and you know, we sort of had a falling out where she was like,
sorry, man.
you know, she, in not so many words, was like, I don't know what happened, but it's like,
It's
regardless, you
way.
were objectifying women, and look where it got you. And I'm like, yeah.
Either way, you screwed up.
Yeah, 100%. And we have to always own that, you know. And then, but the consequences aren't always going to match. You know, there's going to be politics involved. There's going to be injustice involved. But at the end of the day, that's life, man. Yeah. There's so many atoms involved in every situation. Well, if we try and control that, or be prepared for all the nuances, you can't.
Well, it's been 18 months is a long time. That's torture for a young man.
Yeah.
So
15. Where were you getting at? You started to unravel, and that had an impact on the judge's decision.
So I get out. We get bailed out. We hire up attorneys, and I was still in the mindset. I was really confident that just like
I would be.
We got attorneys. Like
we're good.
It's me.
I didn't do it.
Yeah, 100%. And I was like, okay, let's get through this. So my confidence was fine. We actually went right back to school. I wasn't like. I didn't feel any pushback at school. And then after about a month, what was that book? Was it To Kill a Mockingbird, where there's a rape? There's
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And my teacher brought up, we had to read it in class. She's like, I don't want Alex in here for this book. She told the principal, and she's like, I don't want him. And I was like, hey, fuck this. Like, all right, I'm out of school. I was like, I'll stay out of school. I'll focus on the case. And then that isolation ended up like.
So you dropped out of
school. Now I was isolated. Now everyone was off building their own narratives. I didn't know what they were thinking, like you said.
And you can't control it.
The only place I'm really able to speak up is in court, and it doesn't even feel like they're really.
No one's listening.
Me. Yeah.
Damn.
So it started to unravel. I would just say about maybe 6 months in, when I started seeing the nature of how things were going to go. It was like, we go to court. The prosecutor hated me. She believed I was guilty. She would have gotten the death penalty if it was an option. She wanted us gone, dead, life sentence. And I mean, we're in there every week going to these hearings, hearing we want life. You know, the accuser's in there, her family, everyone's in there, and I'm trying to find my way to navigate through this with my attorney saying, well, find a way to, like, you know, you got to be accountable for your part in this, but also stand in your truth. And like the identity crisis that I think came into that. But what really set things in motion in terms of the downward spiral was when they tried to pit Chad and I against each other. So
manipulation.
They charged us separately, and then what ended up happening is his public defender was like, hey man, if we go to trial, like there's so much shit at this point, we don't know which way it's gonna go. Why don't you just take a deal? Why don't you take this plea deal? The prosecutors, I'm skipping over so much, but it was about after, I would say, almost 18 months. 12 months, somewhere in there, they offered a deal. And I think it was because we were all on the same page. Like, we didn't know.
Did you have a chance to talk real quick? Because I think we should slow it down for this part.
Yeah, we should.
Because your best friend's in this. I don't know if there's private strategies happening with him and you, but I can imagine how that's a nightmare waiting to happen. Yeah. Like, it's so easy to flip on someone and make them the bad guy. True or not, doesn't matter. It's easy to do. You know what I mean? And if you're not on the same page as that's got to be very stressful. Because if you're trying to be loyal in a situation and keep truth as the barometer for how we make decisions, and someone's trying to spin the truth now to save their own ass, that's tricky, right? I can't even imagine how frustrating that might be, especially if you don't have control over anything.
Yeah. Yeah, they...
Was that happening?
It was happening. We weren't... At first, we were. Like, at first, we were,
Same page.
Same page. We were on the same page. Hey, we're in this together, bro. Like, this was 100%. Yeah, I mean, we were isolating together, spending time together, and then it was, legal teams did what they did, and the public defender wants to go... They want their first option out. If there's a deal on the table, they want to take it.
Yeah.
And so what they did was they convinced Chad to say, well, hey, maybe you plead guilty, but you weren't really that guilty. You just say Alex kind of forced your hand. He was the perpetrator. And like I said in my speech, he said okay. He took the plea deal. He wrote up a testimony saying that was the case. And then when it came time to get on stand,
you were the ringleader.
That I was the ringleader. That he was he didn't want to do it.
Were you the ringleader?
He was intimidated. Oh, are you asking?
Right now.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
So this is all false, and now your best friend in the world is accusing you of being essentially the ringleader of this thing.
Yeah.
For a plea.
Yeah, and that he was sort of another innocent bystander in the situation.
Oh man.
And that was a big one that just, because not only did it crush me, like, hey, it's my best friend, but it's like, now we're fucked. Like, what do I do now? I can't even defend my innocence because now there's 3 conflicting stories.
And it's 2 against 1.
How do we go to trial? He took a deal. Like, do I even get to go to trial? So it was like.
Did her story justify any of that at all? Did it pad the point that there was a ringleader and that it was you?
What's crazy about her testimony is it evolved over time to where the accusations got less and less. At first, it was they pinned me down and fucking raped me.
Man.
And then it was, well, maybe they kind of coerced me in there, and then like Chad was laying on my arm, and my arm was pinned. And then over time, it was like, well, they pressured me, and it was like, so to me, that was another reason. Like, I'm staying with the same story this whole time. Like, yeah, we were dumb kids, we shouldn't have been in that room, but I did not force anybody to do anything. And why? Yeah. You know, how are they not seeing this? How are they not seeing the conflicting stories that, you know? And
lawyers are good, bro.
So I think, you know,
damn.
Now, prior to that, I had already ran into some depression. I mean, within that 18-month span, my parents sent me to suicide prevention at Kootenai Behavioral Health because they were worried I was going to kill myself because I said I wanted to die. And then they sent me to rehab in the middle of the desert. They sent me out to the middle of the desert. Some guys came, swooped me up in the middle of the night. And they were just trying to keep me in line so that I could get through this whole court thing and keep my wits about me. But I would go in and out through bouts of, all right, I got this. Let's persevere. Let's push through. And then bouts of just, fuck, let's give up. Like, why?
You're a child. You're still a child.
I wasn't equipped with those, that self-awareness on how do I, persevere through this. Yeah. And I had to figure it out as I went, which became its own blessing. You know, eventually.
Later, yeah. And so Chad, tell us, he prepares this written statement, and he took it back at some point, or how did it unfold? Yeah.
So leading up to all this, like I said, there was no physical evidence. There was witnesses brought in, character letters, and all of that. We were preparing for trial, and there was never any question. We were all going to go to trial. Chad and I were going to stand and prove our innocence. The thought of a deal. Even though it was enticing, because we were facing life in prison as rapists, convicted, registered sex offenders. This deal was, well, we'll drop all the sex charges. You're not registered sex offenders, and it carries a maximum of 10 years, and we'll recommend probation. So it was like Chad's oh yeah, this sounds pretty good.
I gotta be honest. Works, yeah. I don't know, man.
I said fuck no, and I said fuck no, and Chad said okay, and so he writes.
You were dead set on winning.
The truth. Yeah.
I was dead set on there was even part of me that knew maybe it wouldn't fall in my favor, but I was ready to face that.
Wow.
Over saying I did something I didn't.
Reminds me of Socrates.
Dude,
so Socrates in Plato writes the Apology, and it's when Socrates is accused of corrupting the youth of Greece, and the sentence is you're going to die. You have to die. It was a death sentence, and so he goes along. It's a profound one if you haven't read it. The Apology. He's considered one of the bravest men. Anyway, and he would never violate what was known as his inner daemon, which is kind of like an angelic, kind of like your conscience, angelic spirit sort of within. And he just wouldn't do it. He's like, I would be uttering a lie. And so he voluntarily drank hemlock and killed himself rather than. I mean, it's a profound. That's just we haven't even unpacked the whole story.
I guess
there's all these archetypal, profound things Alex as a young kid and man's having to confront. That's one of them, and right there. So
That's powerful, bro.
So carry on, man. Yeah. So you're in your.
So So
you're facing something like that.
I remember, I'm trying to remember the sequence because we had seen each other in private after I'd found out of
He's taking a plea?
That he was taking this plea, that he had created this testimony that he was going to give. And I remember just being like, dude, why?
Did he tell you?
No, that he was the one that he was doing.
That he was going to do it? Yeah.
No, I found out through the courts. I found out through my
So you did have a private moment with him?
Did you feel backstabbed in that moment?
I did. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Because he's now
I was I didn't believe it. There's no way. And I don't remember how I saw him, but it was in some private setting. And I wasn't mad. I just said, dude, why? Did you really do this? And he was just broken, man. He's just I just can't go on anymore.
So he did shed some regret.
And I said, but what's that?
He shed some regret to you?
Oh, yeah. He shed some regret. And then the day he was set to speak, so he had to go up. We had its own hearing. Chad's changing his testimony. We're going to have a hearing to hear this testimony. Jesus. So we all went, and I was in the bathroom taking a piss, and he walked in. And there was a million things raced through my mind. I was like, do I fucking kill him? What do I do? Like at
punch
this
his
point,
lights
yeah,
out?
I was like, and
Emotions.
I just cried, dude. I just sat there and cried, and he hugged me, and we didn't say a fucking word, dude, not a word.
Wow.
And then he went up and said, I plead the fifth.
Oh, he
And
did.
he didn't testify.
He didn't turn on you.
Yeah.
But the damage has already been
The damage had been done. So the courts, I mean, they said, are you sure? Are you sure about this? You've already accepted the plea deal. And he said, I'm not speaking.
That's
Another sacrifice for like truth, you know? Wow. And
It's like
Was your-
Shakespearean, man.
along this time. I just got to ask some questions that keep out of my mind.
yeah.
Was your family putting pressure on you to Alex take the plea? You're facing life. We can't take a risk here. They're going to recommend probation in 10 years with no sex charges. Just
Yeah.
take the plea. To me, that's almost an out that you raped anyone, but it's really not, and you knew that.
Right.
You're still going to be stoned with that the rest of your life. It'll be tattooed across your forehead for the rest of your life. That's how you feel about it. But I can imagine pressures from your family saying, "Dude, take it. We love you. Take it. We believe you. Take it."
Yeah, I think it was honestly, I think it was a group effort. We were all in it together. My mom, anytime there was an appointment with the legal team, my parents were there, and we would all strategize and usually, yeah, it was like, I mean, even my attorney was like, I think you should take it. At one point, he was like, I really think you should take it. And obviously, I wrestled with that every day. I would wake up like, should I take this plea deal? Like, should I just end the misery? And eventually, I did.
End the misery.
I did end the misery. I opted to end it and not go to trial. And it was really, the impetus was Chad pleading guilty. It was kind of just, it was the nail in the coffin. So I was like, well, I'll take this plea deal, take my chances.
How close were you to a trial at this point?
Gosh, we were months away. I mean, it was like it was the prosecution's last ditch effort to be like, all right, if we want to get a prosecution, maybe we just need to throw a deal on the table.
Let me ask you. So you ended up taking the plea after going down all these battles.
Yeah.
Did you regret that?
I do a little bit because hindsight, why would prosecution offer a plea deal right before trial if they knew unless they knew they didn't have any
There's no evidence, bro.
There was no. I'm 15 and like why didn't And I don't remember. There should have been 50 discussions around that with my attorney. If there's no evidence, there's no physical evidence, go to trial.
It's a tricky thing to really convict a little boy.
And I think there was a lot of, not that my parents ever conveyed that, but it's like, man, they were dumping hundreds of thousands of dollars on this.
You're
and
breaking your
and
family.
There was a golden ticket on the table that it was like, it came with some sacrifices, but it was
Did you believe that in taking this deal, you were at least going to get the best case scenario?
Yeah, I believed I was going to get
probation.
I was like, all right, I'll get a year, which to me still sucked. I was like, I'm still guilty. I'm still on probation. I'm labeled, whatever. And I was like, but I didn't expect.
What happened?
What I got.
Don't jump ahead because we're still going.
That's still coming on the story. But.
Absolutely.
So, can you describe the moment when you made the decision in your mind that you're going to take the plea? Work me through that moment.
Gosh, I don't remember. I just.
It's a blur.
It probably came up in a. I'm sure it was after that. When Chad pled the fifth, I'm sure we had a legal appointment. We all met up, and they were like, "Look, at this point, you have pretty limited options," and that's what I went with, was to take the deal. It might have been my decision. I was so terrified. I mean, I was so confident in the truth. But my faith in the system was just dwindling and dwindling, and I could tell they didn't believe me. I could tell we weren't gaining any traction in court. And I just, despite there being no evidence, I was so scared. And I think it was just me that tapped and was like, let's just take the deal.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary when you're.
Oh wait, I'm skipping. So I was in boarding school rehab when I took the deal.
Yeah.
So when this whole thing happened with Chad, I had already been to 2 facilities at this point. I had spiraled out of control. I'd gotten a DUI. I got
during.
So that was a big part of this.
I can't even imagine.
There's no evidence, but also I'm just keep digging my grave deeper. And
that's an important part of the story.
And that was, it was actually in my judge's closing statement. And so I got a possession charge for marijuana. I got a DUI. I was suicidal. My parents sent me to Kootenai Behavioral Health for a week for suicide prevention. I got out. Within a couple months, they sent me to the middle of the desert for wilderness detox intervention camp. That was like 2.5 months. And then I got back, and then like 3 months later, they sent me to... Again, I woke up in the morning to 2 guys escorting me to Naples, Idaho, to a boarding school in the mountains. And that was where I started getting my sanity back, because I sobered up. I was at this boarding school. It was actually a pretty prestigious boarding school. I was eating good food. I was working out, taking care of myself. And I think just in my clarity, I decided it was the best decision to like take the deal.
Yeah.
Because they were literally shuttling me from Naples, which is on the Canadian border, shuttling me from there to my hearings. Once a week, I'd go there.
Yeah.
And one of the counselors from the facility would have to like put me in the van, take me so Alex could go to his hearings for, facing life.
This whole time, the girl on the other side, what you have any insight on what's going on her side as a human, just as a person that's maybe sending a little boy away?
That was another thing I wondered. It was in the back of my mind, like, will she ever just maybe say something like, hey, maybe this got out of control? One thing it's important to know is I got a phone call one day, and I was hanging out with some friends. We're all drinking. We're at this party, and I get this phone call, and she's like, is this Alex? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, I'm the cousin of the accuser. She introduces herself. She was like a young girl, like 13. She just started bawling. She's like, I just want to say I'm so sorry for what's happening. And like, we know what really happened. She's like, we know what really happened. Just know the family even knows. Like and I recorded it.
Could you prove
I pressed record.
Did you have a recorder ready to go somehow?
No, it was on my phone. Like, she was a phone call, so I just pressed a recording app. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Recorded the phone call, and I said, can you say that again? And she was like bawling, and I was like, will you testify? And again, I walk a fine line of not trying to like shed a bad light on anyone, but this wasn't her first accusation. So that was another piece that I thought would come into the
court didn't know this?
It's not allowed to be brought into court.
Why?
Victim protection laws. Even if there's not a conviction associated with it, yeah, 100%.
That's
so
really
when
important.
I found that, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And that to me, and I went back and forth with my attorney, like, there has to be a way. This has to be admissible.
Even a 16-year-old little girl has already accused other people, and none of that ever got to court.
Yeah, and that's what this, and that's what this girl touched on. She's like, I just, I've seen this happen before now, but I never saw it come to this level before. And we recorded it. My attorney called her to court to testify. Wow. She wouldn't speak. She's like, that's my family. I can't. I'm sorry. We played her recording.
Oh, you played the recording?
We played the recording, yeah. The judge said that it would have to get thrown out because she was under 18. So you can record without consent in Idaho, but not if they're
I was going to say, there's
these
laws
peculiarities.
Yeah. So, but again, nuance.
Yeah.
So it was such stepping up to that plate, man. The odds of striking out is 50. It was like 50-50.
I have a
especially
client.
if the judge hates you.
It's scary. This isn't even life in prison, but I have a client runs a certain business, but he basically was accused of like $50K worth of errors in his business. Now he's facing like $1.8 million in this lawsuit, and then his attorney, he basically settled for half of that because he just didn't know.
Yeah, the fear of not knowing.
Yeah, the fear of what you could do in the legal, and it's wrecking.
Gambling,
I mean, that's a lot of money to like a business owner, to have to come up with 800. Just
and the difference of 10 years in life is
I can't even imagine the scale difference. But just even
10 years
wrestling with that, he was like, do I risk? But I could risk 1.5 million in my family, so I'll just pay like. And he was, from what I understand, he was totally in the right.
I'd bankrupt myself.
Like, yeah, I know, but I could see when you're dealing with your life, it's on a totally different magnitude. And I remember in your talk, Alex, your heart also went out to the toll on your family financially.
Yeah.
Their strain, like the totality of the situation. So
and we haven't even stumbled upon another massive part of the story. And I don't know where that pops in, but like sort of the evolution. I don't know where Chad pops in. I'll let you keep going. I don't want to foreshadow anything, but
yeah, and yeah, it's so true, and I think no one's really equipped with like the survival mechanisms and the self-awareness, like I said, and the grit to persevere something like that. But when you're 15, especially,
you're not even developed.
But I really do believe that's part of the blessing in disguise. It's like Cody Alford talked about on here, and it's like is going to war and touching the depths of hell and getting forced to get like clear with yourself on who the fuck you are. Like, is that necessarily a bad thing? And obviously I've come to terms with that over time. I've come to terms with that over time, but it was like everything happened in the exact right way that it tested me to the utmost degree. I was so tested to just give up, to cash out, I mean, even before we made it to, let alone to sentencing, like I wanted out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It just seemed like the easier way. Something in me.
Now, looking back now, knowing what you know now, if they get a jury together, do you get off? You think?
I mean, I would go to trial now, 100%. I don't know. It's hard to say.
There's a little regret in that decision.
Oh yeah, there's regret. I would do it differently now, knowing what I know. But
so what?
I don't know that I would have gained all the life lessons.
Yeah.
Who the fuck knows?
Would you be the man you are?
It's hard to
today?
know. Yeah, it's
all
meant to be
hypothetical.
Yeah. So
what happened?
So what happens?
Yeah.
So I accept the plea deal.
Which was what, 10 years?
It was 10 years, no sex offense, so we wouldn't have to register as sex offenders, and then the prosecution was going to recommend probation. And it's important to note the judge, he's a long-standing judge here. Honestly, at the time I couldn't stand him, and I've grown a love-hate relationship for him because he's so stoic. It just scares the living shit out of you, but that's kind of the nature of judges. But he's also a rehabilitational judge, so pretty much anyone who goes in front of him goes to prison, but he tries to give you these like small sentences to enforce like rehabilitation and say, all right, I'll give you one year fixed, maybe 9 years indeterminate. So if you do good for 1 year, we'll get you out on
That's
parole.
fair.
So that was my big fear is like, I don't know. I think he's going to want me to like do some time. Like that's just what this judge does. He seems like he doesn't like me. If anyone's going to do time, it's going to be me. So I was preparing, like my judge was preparing, or my attorney was preparing me for like, maybe you're going to get a year.
Okay.
Who knows? Like that could be worst case scenario. And I was like, all right, I can handle
do
that.
this.
I can handle a year, So I remember my day hearing. I got dressed up. I was at boarding school at the time in Naples.
Did you have tats back then?
No, I only had one. I had gotten one during this. It's on my back, and it says only God can judge me. And I got it during that time.
Profound, man.
So I had that on my back, and I had that belief in my heart, and and I had built a relationship with my counselor at this point at the boarding school. It was a rehabilitational boarding school, but they had prestigious teachers there from all over the world, from the UK. It was a great facility, and I had built this relationship. He was sort of a support system for me, and we'd do these long drives to go to court, and he kind of talked to me, how you feeling, how you doing, and he'd be there during these hearings, because he was sort of my chaperone during that time. And I'm sure that didn't look good So anyways, we get there, I'm all dressed up, and it was honestly kind of a happy day. Like everyone, I remember it being sort of a happy day at first. My family was there. There was some level of relief, the pressure being gone, the uncertainty being gone. It's like we get to go, we get to get answers today. I was first to get sentenced. Chad would get sentenced like a month after me. So I get in there and I'm trying to remember the sequence of things. At some point I got to make my final remark, and I had practiced and drafted it to the best of my ability to honestly take accountability for my part and then stand in my truth. So I said, I'm paraphrasing, but I basically said, I want to start by apologizing just to everyone in this room, to the courts, to my family, to the accuser, to everyone involved that had to go through this. Like mine and Chad's actions, got us into that room, and as a result, like here we are today. Regardless of the fact that we have conflicting testimonies, like I know that choices have consequences, and I'm not pleading guilty to rape, but I'm here to own up to my part in this, and and to face whatever sentence you throw my way.
It's hard, man.
And so I think I might have read a letter. I think I read like just an apology letter to the accuser saying, I'm not sure what's going through your mind or why or how you came up with this, but I just know like I hold no animosity and I only wish you the best kind of deal. And
you forgave her.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really did. At that time I meant it, because my real animosity was towards the system, and I was angry. Like I was angry at the judge, angry at everybody.
Well, all this testimony that can't be admitted, it seems like that's malfeasance. That's BS, man. These are really important things that really they carry weight, real validity.
When there's no evidence, you've got to be able to bring some of these other factors in. And that's where it's like, I try not to ever sound like a victim, but there were so many cards that just fell not in our favor throughout this. And again, in my opinion, all led to things happening and unfolding exactly how they needed to. But the judge basically looked at me, and
on sentencing
on
day?
sentencing, yeah. So sentencing day, he said, I appreciate your remarks. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure. We've had so many hearings. There's been so many testimonies, so much conflicting hearsay. I don't know what to believe. He's like, but one thing I do know is you're headed down the wrong path, and it's my job to intervene. I mean, that sentence right there came out of his mouth. So
that's powerful.
He was going to lay the gavel, and he did. And he said, I sentence you to 10 years in Idaho State Correctional Institution. I'm giving you the max sentence. And
you got the max.
You'll be remanded into custody immediately. The bailiffs came from all corners. The door opened, more bailiffs came in. My mom's bawling. I'm just standing there like I remember the gal that was typing everything up, and she started crying.
Oh wow!
The transcript gal, and she's looking at me just bawling, and I'm looking back at her like, did I just hear that? And she's like, I don't know, I'm typing it. It sounds like you're going to prison for 10 years. And my dad's like, we love you, Alex, stay strong. And the judge is still rambling on, and what ended up, so then they cuff me, they bring me back into a little room, and my attorney gets a chance to come talk to me. And he's like, keep your head up, you're gonna get through this, you gotta retain jurisdiction. And basically what that means, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it was basically like a second chance program. And they don't have it anymore. They abolished it. There's been several iterations of it. Different states have it. Idaho, it was called the Rider program, or the retained jurisdiction.
That's sentencing.
What they would do is they'd sentence, like for me, I got sentenced to 10 years, but I had the opportunity, if I did really good and I did everything the judge wanted. So the judge gets to maintain control over you for a year instead of giving all control to the penitentiary. So you do all this stuff, and then you go back in front of your judge after a year, and he gets to say, well, with my, maybe I'll let you off, maybe I'll let you go do your time.
But it's still 10 years.
It's still 10 years, and it's still uncertain, because if I don't do everything just right, and I didn't understand, so I'm like, well, what does that mean? He's like, you're still going to prison, but you got to abide by different standards and follow these rules and do these programming.
Still,
if you do that, you'll get out. And I'm like, okay, but I'm going to prison, right? He's at Boise State Penitentiary. Yeah.
Damn.
So actually, speaking of the only God can judge me, then I get out. They take me to a portable. This is my first anal cavity, first of many anal cavity searches as a 15-year-old. Now this guy's essentially a sex offender because he's looking up a 15-year-old's ass. Wow. But they take me into this portable. He strips me down. He says, take all your shit off. And then he sees my back tattoo, and he goes, only God can judge you, huh? That's pretty ironic. And then he strip searched me, got me in my jumpsuit. It was nighttime at this point. It was like 9 o'clock at night. And then they transported me to jail, and that begun my long journey through the prison system.
Did you have any relief at all in that moment?
No, even though I was so terrified. I was like, so shocked, you were
tried as an adult.
I was an adult, so we were sentenced to, and that's a whole nother thing. So now we're in Boise State Penitentiary, and we're not allowed
maximum
to be
security.
Yeah, so where do they put us if we can't be in
isolation?
Yeah, you're going to be 23 hours a day. It's a nightmare.
There was no system. So it's like, fine, give whatever, but have the systems in place. If you're going to send 15-year-olds, and
that's torture.
It's already hard enough, but if you're isolated in a cell, I mean, and you don't have any of the amenities that any of the other inmates have, that was a whole other ball of wax that we'll get to. So where do you want me to go? You just want me to keep going from there, essentially?
The story doesn't end because your buddy who gets sentenced.
So then I go and I get into Kootenai County Jail, and again they're just keeping me in booking for weeks on end. And I'm asking when am I going to get out of here? And they're like, we don't know. We're trying to figure that out. Right now we just need to keep you in booking. We're talking, and I'm like, can I speak to a warden? Can I speak to a sergeant? And I'm just at Kootenai County Jail. They're busy. They don't know what to do. I can't have visitations because I'm not even a real inmate, And so I finally, I think it was about 3 weeks of being in this booking cell. Every once in a while they'd be like, here's a book. You want a book? Here's some. I couldn't get commissary. I didn't even have a number because they couldn't figure out how to book me into the system. So then they go, well, hey, this pod opened up. It's a 4-man pod. We're just going to put you in there by yourself. And I was like, oh, sweet. Like, that's amazing. They get me in there. There's a TV. There's these 4 pods with like bunk beds, a shower in there. I was only showering like once a week. They were letting me out maybe twice a week to shower. So now I had this nice space. And I finally, for the first time, was like, all right, maybe I can buckle up and like find a way to persevere.
Get through this.
There's a phone in there. I got them set up so I could call my parents, and I tell them I'm like, hey, I'm in a cell. I'm doing a little better. And then they break the news. Chad just got sentenced. He got 5 years. And essentially the judge gave him 5 years because he sort of bought the narrative that he had less involvement. And because he pled guilty first, he sort of was like, hey, thanks for being the first to take accountability.
What about, was Chad making bad decisions the way you were through the whole period of time?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, we were both.
So you were both going off deep end.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, but it really, and the judge never said that, but we all just assumed he
want to shake you guys, but when you're a kid, you're a fucking idiot.
We just assumed that he gave him a lighter sentence because, again, he pled guilty first, and
yeah, that makes sense. It does.
To a degree, he had tried.
Yeah, it's the same outcome, but he was the one that came to it first.
And that's what the judge wanted.
Yeah, right. Wow.
And he said that in my sentencing remarks, something to the degree of, the fact that you take no accountability, blah, blah, blah. So he believed we were guilty. And my lack of accountability only.
If he could see you now.
Yeah.
Well, so I get into that cell. The next day, I get rolled up for prison transport. I was like, finally in this cell.
Yeah, you're in a sweet
spot.
There's
a little bit of relief. I didn't even sleep in the bunks. I took the mat and laid it in front of the TV, and I would just lay out, watch TV. I was like, all right, man. Like,
it's just the good life.
Yeah, let's find a way to settle in. So then the next morning, it's like 4 a.m. I hear the intercom. Hey, Alex, roll your shit. You're going on prison transport. Because they can't tell you when you're going on transport. There's no schedule because it would be a safety concern for people trying to break you out or whatever. So they roll me up. We get on the prison transport. I would say that was probably the worst experience out of all my prison experience was the transport. It's a 2-week process. They pick you up at Kootenai County Jail, and you stop at every single jail in the state of Idaho on your way to Boise. And you pick up different inmates, and you sit on this bus with these hard seats, and you're shackled and you're cuffed. And you're driving for hours and hours all day, and you're listening to sad, depressing country music, and then you're watching these happy families drive by as you're sitting there. You can't even like lift your arm up, right? And so that was such a degrading experience. And I remember just the narrative that these inmates have and that they bleed into you is like, hey, you're part of the system now, bro. Like, buckle up. This is you. And I'm like, I'm such a newcomer to the prison. I'm like, no, I'm innocent, guys.
You're a
like,
child.
You understand? You're like, everybody's fucking innocent in here.
We're all
like,
innocent,
bro. And I was like, no, you don't get it. I'm on retained.
That's Shawshank Redemption shit. Right?
I was like, I'm on a retained jurisdiction. I'll be out in a year. And they're like, bro, we all got retained jurisdictions. I've been locked up for 10 years. He's like, have fun, buckle up. Damn. You don't get parole. Like, you think, and I'm just like, wait, like, no.
Yeah.
So now
they're indoctrinating you right now.
And so that combined with, being on this transport, and then every time you get to a new facility, they take you off, you go through strip search. So going through that process constantly, all these naked men, shackled and cuffed. And
you're
just
a little boy, bro.
Packed into these sardine cans. And then when you sleep at these jails, you don't go in cells. You sleep in like the cafeteria because they don't have room for you. They've already got all these inmates, but you need to stay overnight because you're on jail transport. So they just take all these guys and say, here's a mat. You sleep in the cafeteria.
No sense of normalcy or like a rhythm that you can start trusting.
Dignity.
It's just like a 2-week, when is this going to end?
And keep in mind, I really didn't know what was ahead. Like I was like, all right, so when we get to Boise, then now do I get to be in general population? Is that going to be the saving grace? It was took 2 weeks for us to get to Boise. We finally get to Boise, and it just looked like something out of a movie. I remember just pulling up, and it was just desert, and this gate, and there's like tumbleweeds and barbed wire and this old decrepit like basketball court. Shawshank Redemption, dude. Like I was like, holy fuck, like I'm here. It just hadn't really hit me until you roll up on the prison bus and you're like, and you go through that warden speech and you go through that strip search and the intake. And then what happened was I'd been hearing about this glorious Unit 24. Everyone's like, oh, don't wait till you get to Boise. You get into Unit 24. There's a pool table. There's a phone. There's TVs. Everyone starts getting booked into Unit 24, and then they say, hey, come with me. And I'm like, well, wait, where am I going? They put me back in shackles and cuffs, back in a jumpsuit. All the other inmates are getting their, their blues, their jeans and their blue button ups and their jackets. I stay in my jumpsuit. I'm like, where am I going?
Yeah.
And they walked me to ADSEG, to segregation, to solitary confinement.
What a letdown, huh?
Solitary confinement.
Yeah.
Damn, bro.
And that was my home for about 3 months until they could get me in the general population. So, 8x10 cell, 2 showers a week, 24 hours a day, no outside time, no window.
That's hard, man. That's a hard 3 months. What's going on with your buddy at this time?
I didn't know. So at this point, we never saw each other.
Was he in the same
kept
building?
Separate. Yeah, he.
Could you write him letters?
No, not
That's
at
a
all.
bummer. You couldn't be there for him, and he couldn't be there for you. Trying to go through.
Well, so here's what happened: is I sort of figured out I was just ahead of him on the transport. So he got sentenced after me, then he was in county after me, and then I sort of figured out they were gonna just keep us separate the whole time. So I was gonna go do, my booking and everything, and then he would get in behind me. I actually wrote him a bunch of letters on the cell wall, and I came to find out later he had read them. Oh, wow. He was in the same cell, and I'd written all these things like, "Dude, keep your head up. Like, we're in this together. I love you."
Yeah, it gives me chills.
And I was able to find out later he was in that cell, and he did read all those letters.
Oh, man, it's powerful.
Wow.
And it was the closest cell to like the security tower, the guard tower. So I figured that's where they were gonna keep us while they tried to figure out what to do. But there was, it was a horror show in there, man.
Because this was high profile, bottom line too.
High profile. So there,
2 years of it.
Yeah, and I'm in
Wow.
and I'm in here with like the worst of the worst within the prison.
Killers, murders.
And so what they do is they stay up all night yelling under the doors, man. Like, criminally insane gang members talking about their crimes, talking about people they've murdered and killed, and talking about how much they fucking hate sex offenders and how they'll slit the first sex offender throat. Don't forget, like, I'm wearing that jacket too. Even though they had dropped that charge, everyone in the system I figured out knew that the charge I had was just a lesser charge for a sex offense. So even though I didn't bear that label, anyone who knew my charge, which they can find it out pretty quickly, they knew I was likely there on sex charges.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, maybe it's good I'm in here. Maybe I'm protected, whatever. But then I'm getting this, that's what I'm taking in, is just this darkness every night, listening to these guys, trying to like cover up my ears and just, but what do you do, man? And I would, I'd fall to my knees, I would pray, I would go in and out of bouts. I wasn't a spiritual man before that. And the shepherd's prayer was written on the wall, which now I have tattooed on me too. And
Were you getting these tattoos in prison?
No, I didn't get them until after.
Yeah. Could you have?
No, because I was in solitary, and then by the time I got into general, I had to walk such a fine line.
Yeah,
I couldn't
access. Yeah,
I couldn't be like the other shit stick inmates
who are there no matter what.
Yeah.
So you did take it seriously. You're gonna get out of this.
Yeah, I was like, I'm getting out, man.
I'm gonna do everything it takes. I'm gonna reform my life. I'm gonna become a disciplined human. I'm bringing God in. Like, what was the mental process here? And I know there's still a big piece here where we're leading to. But
yeah, so I read this the shepherd's prayer on my wall, and also, Joseph Duncan had been in that same cell.
He's the guy that
kidnapped. He had written all over the wall. So I'm reading his
name
stuff.
was Duncan?
Joseph Duncan.
You read shit he wrote on that wall.
Yeah, he had written all kinds of weird, like just weird stuff.
Wow,
and then there would be all kinds, weird pictures drawn, and then intertwined, and that was some other inmates had written some prayers. And honestly, I would sit and I would read those, and I would just try and internalize them. Every word, every sentence. What does that mean? Like, I shall fear no evil. Like, I walk through the shadow of death. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this chaplain came to my cell. Like, I'd maybe been in a month. I was just lost. Like, I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. This whole time, I'm asking, hey, can I speak to a warden? Can I speak to a sergeant? Like, you only see a guard maybe once every 8 hours, right? What's going on? When do I get out of here? They don't have any answers. They scheduled me a meeting with a sergeant. Sergeant came to my cell, and he literally was like, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Like, we don't have it. You're here until they tell us we can put you somewhere else. I'm like, when can I call my parents? When can I? So eventually I'm like, all right, I'm going to die in here. Like, I'm going to just stop eating, stop showering, stop taking care of myself, and I'll just die of apathy. And then this chaplain came to, chaplain came to my cell, and he just said, hey, can I be with you? Can I talk to you?
Wow.
And I just like broke down, man. That was the first piece of like grace or love or compassion that I'd felt. and that little, just few words, like,
That's all you need.
Oh my gosh, man! And you talk about it all the time. You never realize how much you can impact someone.
I
And it was like,
know.
he saved my life, dude. He saved my
Yeah,
life. And who knows if he.
I know.
Who knows if he always walks those halls, or if he just knew that there was like, if that I was in there and probably needed him in that moment. And he just said, "Are you a spiritual man?" I said, "No." He said, "Can I read you some Bible verses?" And I just sat there and he read me these verses.
Just
and then I said, "Can I get a Bible?" I read that Bible back to front, from Genesis all the way through. And I didn't understand it. I was confused. And I was like, all right, but if there's a way I can leverage this like higher power thing and his grace and his love through this time to get through this, then I'm going to do it.
Wow.
So that was a big part of my strength.
I think about that a lot, man. Like, we can all be magnificent heroes to someone if we have the wherewithal to just ask the right question at the right time to someone who needs it.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. I think everyone has the capacity to be a real hero. And I think about so many people that had impactful moments in my life that were so subtle, and they shouldn't be that impactful, but especially as a young person with your neural pathways that are developing, it's amazing who's going to come in when you need it most and do something that just becomes profound in your life. These certain people that come in our story that have such a big value proposition, and oftentimes it's just they saw you when you needed to be seen.
Yeah, they just were with you.
But everyone can do that. We're all moving so fast. And part of impact game for me is being more aware of how I can affect Alex's life. I can have this really profound effect in his life just because I choose to. I made the decision to be a hero for Alex, even if it doesn't resonate. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But being really mindful that I have real power. And it's amazing now to see this shell since I've known him that he's coming out of, and he's leaning into the thing that I guarantee he hid from for a long time.
I did.
He hid the story. He didn't use it to help people. He didn't, but Man on a Mission somehow brought this light into his eyes for a very dark period of his time. And this will be the thing that gets into the greatest version of himself. To know that me and you, Matt, had a play in this young man's life is one of the most rewarding, gratifying, fulfilling events of my life. And I want to do this forever. You could build a whole business and brand around this, around impact, where you're really, instead of being mad at the TV or you are not utilizing emotions to win in life, it doesn't really matter what it is. Like, we're winning now because we're leaving valuable marks, and we get to watch him go leave valuable marks now. I can forever attach myself to all his moves and feel really proud of that. I love when other people win, but so many people have untapped potential, and this is exactly what it actually looks like. People ask me all the time, Eric, how do I use my story for purpose like you talk about? Well, this is a prime example of someone that is going to come into their calling. And again, he's raising money for real estate. He's buying properties. I mean, he wants to be rich. We all want financial freedom. He wants to give his daughter a good life, which is where this story ends, which is so touching, a little foreshadowing. But at the end of the day, it'll be impact that makes him so much more deadly. It gives him so much more opportunity and creates so much more happiness and fulfillment. And unfortunately, my friend, most people will never get near this version of himself. The masses die with nothing but regret. They didn't really impact anyone. They weren't really a hero for many people. Or maybe they were and they played small and they could have played much bigger. But oftentimes it's the darkest moments in our life which create the most momentum, the most impact, the most amount of the rhythms we're all dreaming of. They're trapped inside what you're afraid of. They're trapped inside the things that you're ashamed of and you're trying to hide. This is part of becoming the best version of yourself, is leaning into that and then really holding yourself accountable to the story. Once you tell the story to the world, it puts a lot of pressure on you to become a steward of that story and uphold it in the greatest light, where the only thing you can do with it is help people. It's the only reason to reveal it, because it's really embarrassing. There's all kinds of things that an untrained eye might say of why they shouldn't tell this story to the world.
But in truth, the listener can relate in their human nature.
It's
at a
powerful.
profound level.
Well, here's what.
But for the grace of God, I didn't go that way myself. That's what the listeners think.
Sure.
They're all of it.
Well, there's a lot of lessons in this story that even people that have never been through the situation can tap into, because we haven't finished telling the story yet. Where we're leading is, well, if you can go through that and end up where Alex did, who's just winning in life big time. I mean, like, there's so much potential too that's about to simmer to the top. But if he can do it with this baggage that haunts his dreams,
then I can finally.
What
do
else
X,
can you
Y,
do?
Z.
Yeah, what's holding you back?
You're going to be that chaplain to many listeners, brother.
This is his greatest. This is his greatest asset, actually.
Chaplain's love.
That's my point.
That it extends through Eric. It extends through, but you're gonna.
You are that
maybe
chaplain.
so that you are that to somebody out there.
100%.
So
and you guys are helping that come to fruition. I heard you talk about it on Cody Alfred's podcast too.
That was a good one.
That's like to bring, like, sometimes we find out to bring that light to others is by being in the darkness, you know?
Exactly right.
And I didn't realize, like, all my darkness was a way to bring light. And you guys are like, oh, and then I get the feedback from the group and the people. I mean, I'm getting feedback from people who were victims, sexual abuse victims, saying, man, your story is like, it sheds light on both sides of
I see you.
of the injustice, and the fact that you can stand and not cast blame or anger and just be here and use it as a
grace
you're an ambassador.
with what you don't say touches me as much as what you say.
Yeah, I
how
agree.
you're holding all of this.
Yeah. That's why the story's so good. We can feel what it would have felt like to have our lives be destroyed at a different level than most will ever understand.
And clinging to a scripture verse.
Yeah, it could happen to anyone, any dumb kid. And the point is, we are victims to so many circumstances because we create the victim mentality. And if someone could rise past this, there's endless possibilities for your life.
Yeah, it's this core of Viktor Frankl's man's search for
100%.
meaning. Like he just is like, briefly, I'll just say this since it's a part of the show. He discovered that the one thing they couldn't take from me, they could torture me.
Yeah, exactly.
Is
I've always loved that.
I get to choose my attitude about this whole thing, and that's something that no torture object can touch. That was his gift to the world, you know.
And you see that sometimes if you watch documentaries, prison documentaries, you see those guys who like found their purpose in prison, and they're like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna read, I'm gonna study, I'm gonna grow my mind. You can give me a life sentence, you cannot ever give me parole, and you're like, wow.
And I'm gonna thrive.
But it's all, you know, it
$1 million
doesn't happen
mindset.
overnight. For one, it's a choice, but it's a constant choice. Because it was, again, every day I woke up in prison, I was like,
and you're an
do
adolescent.
I kill myself, or
you're,
do I?
You're
find
still
a way?
an adolescent, man.
That's powerful.
You're like, take us back to like, so you talk to this chaplain,
And you just said that. You skip past too fast. Do I kill myself?
Yeah, I mean, that was every morning.
Or do I be grateful?
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Do I kill myself in this moment or be grateful? How lucky am I? Can you reframe this shit?
You can become
powerful,
bitter,
man.
resentful, and despair.
And I had no idea back then, because it's like I had no tools on gratitude or on appreciation or finding the silver lining. All I knew was like the reality that I had known was crushed, and I was in a situation that every morning I still couldn't come to terms with. Am I really here? Am I really in prison? I wake up, am I dreaming? And it was like, man, I just want to go back to bed and not wake up.
This really happened, yeah.
So taking you back to the chaplain, that night, so he left. I mean, I still vividly remember what he looks like, what he sounded like. It was so impactful.
I wonder what he's doing right now.
Who knows, man?
How many lives he's changed.
Dude.
Yeah.
Without even realizing.
That's God's work.
Bro, and I started, so my energy changed. I dropped to the floor. I started working out that night. I got a workout in, like,
You made a decision, right?
I ate the next day. I slept that night. I started reading the Bible. I started praying, and then timing was perfect. They like a couple days went by, and they said, "Hey, we're gonna take you over to medical and get you like finally booked in." And so they took me over to medical, and this nurse, she was a female nurse. She saw me, and she just like started tearing up. And she was like, "Oh my God," like, because I looked like shit, bro. I'd let myself go. I probably looked like a Holocaust survivor to some degree. And she goes, "What happened? Did an angry girlfriend say something?" And I was like, and at that point I was even afraid. I was like, I can't even say I'm innocent at this point. I just didn't even respond. And she was like, "I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what happened, but like no kid deserves." And same thing, just
angelic.
Didn't need to do that, but gave me love,
compassion.
And I was like, man, maybe there's hope. Maybe, like, if they can see that in me, I can still see that in myself. Like, so, I got booked in. Then I got an IDOC number so I could start calling my family. They started being able to send me letters. So I started getting into a groove, a routine. I was working out every day. I was still in solitary confinement, but I had pictures of my family up on the walls. I was writing them letters and
routine.
I had routine, man. And I was like, all right, there was so much still uncertainty. When do I get out of this cell? When do I go back home, if ever? So finally, I don't remember how I found out I was finally getting out of there, but they came and said, we're transporting you to your next facility, which fortunately was, it was a couple hours away from Boise State Penitentiary, and it was like a smaller facility, and they had dormitories and stuff, and I felt so good when I got there. I was like, I was eating in the chow hall. I was integrated in, and then we started doing all the. We had to start doing all the classes and rehabilitational stuff, and that's where things started going south again and getting dark, because now I'm in this room with about 8 other guys, and we're all in there specifically for being sex offenders. And some of them raped their daughters.
Oh man.
Some of them had 50 counts of child pornography.
You're paired with these fucking.
One guy had multiple counts of bestiality, and I'm in the same room. I'm in the same category.
Yeah,
and I have to sit there, and we have to do. You have to do these victim impact letters or these accountability letters, and you have to say that. The verbiage has to be, well, I raped such and such because I did this. I raped such and such because, and I had to write out and I was so conflicted. I'm calling my attorney like, dude, I can't do this. I can't. I don't say.
But
like,
you have to try to.
And he's like,
appease
you do
the
it,
court.
You fucking do it, and you get out and you do it. And I was like, okay, all right. And so it was crazy, man. It was like Hunger Games, because you would literally, if you did one thing wrong, an officer came in and shackled you up and swooped you out, and you were gone. Everyone's like, where'd Jim go? And they're like, oh, he fucked up. He's gone. He's back to Boise. And we were watching guys get swiped up. So the level of just pressure on you, you had to wake up at 4 a.m. It was militant. It was, you had to shave every day. If you had stubble, you got a markup. If you had 3 markups, you were gone. Like, if you go back in front of your judge, if you pass this program and go back in front of your judge, but he saw you had markups, he could say, well, I'm not going to put you on probation and parole. So it was this entire litmus test, and most of them were, and I'm just trying my best to stay positive to get through this, but obviously it's, the circumstances are making it difficult. I had to get my GED in prison, because that was one thing my attorney's like, your judge is going to want you to have your GED when you get out. You're going to have no diploma, no nothing. I was like, dude, I'm not getting my fucking GED. I was on honors. I was an honors student, bro. Yeah. I wanted to go to some Ivy League college. Now you're telling me I'm getting my GED? Yeah. So in prison, I got my GED. That was degrading. There was just all these man, I'm in this box, but I got to get out of it. And after about 2 months, Chad showed up. He got to that.
You saw him.
He got to that facility. We were in the same dorm. We started talking again. He was like, dude, I read all your notes, and I love you. Yeah.
I may have missed that one.
Yeah. So I did see him again. Well, even in my speech that I gave, I never touched on when I got out of solitary confinement.
Okay.
So we both got out of solitary confinement. That was after about 3 months we got out. And we were in this.
Did you forgive him?
Yeah, I did. At that point, I was just so grateful. I was like, dude, we're here. We're alive. Like, fuck, now we're in. Yeah, this facility's a lot better. Like, let's just get home to our family. And that was the energy, both. And then we kind of built our own cliques. They were always like, hey, you guys need to be careful. Like, can't be conspiring or whatever, because we were co-defendants. So he was in his own sex offender group and I was in my own group. Yeah. And but we would see each other in the chow hall. We would talk. We were a support system, even at times unspoken, a support system for each other through that period of time. So then, fast forward, I don't think there's anything else major to touch on until my release of, basically the way that works is you pass your year's worth of programming, and then now you have to go back in front of your judge. Your counselor there at the facility writes up a report. You go back in front of your judge, and he determines whether.
So you did everything right.
Yeah, I didn't have any write-ups. I did all the programming. I took accountability.
Do you feel like you were honestly reformed?
Fuck no, because it was
all game.
They were trying to get me to reform on. I didn't feel like they were reforming.
Based on a falsehood.
There was all of us.
So you're not healed,
but reform us on like real world stuff. Or these guys needed reform. I just didn't. I felt so.
You played the game that you needed.
It felt worse. It felt like it exacerbated the.
And Chad's still behind.
Animosity.
Is he still behind when you go up into this next process?
Yeah. So he's still behind in everything. Got it. Yep. So then I get on the transport. I find out I'm going home, because that's not even certain. You might not even make it back home to see your judge. They might just send you off to prison. I made it through that. I get on transport, get back in front of my judge. I think I spent a night in county jail, and then I spent like 5 hours in this. The cell was this big. Those like telephone booth cells where they put inmates when they're waiting for transporter to go in for hearing. But they sat me there for like 5 hours. And I was like, they forget about me. Like, I mean, it's still shackled and
Hello?
cuffed. Like, where's the judge? Like, but all I did was pray, dude. I just sat there and I was like, I was like, God, whatever.
And you see the same judge that convicted
Yeah,
you.
it was the same judge. And
intense.
I was like, God, like, whatever your will is, may it be done. But just know that if you do give me the second chance, like, I will never, ever, ever let that go. And I will never take that lightly. And it'll be my life's work to, like, make this matter if I get out. I mean, I was so scared. I hadn't seen my judge. I didn't know what he was going to think. I didn't know if this was all a game. Like, hey, go get some treatment, and then I'm going to send you off to do 10 years. So basically, now I'm going in front of him, and he's going to say, you've served a year. Either I'm going to say, go serve your other 9 years, or I'm going to let you off today. You go home to your family today. Wow. Those are my two choices. Dude. So I get in front of him. He reads off my report, and he says, you did an amazing job. I'm so impressed. You did well, just like I knew you would. And he shook my hand, and he said, I'm releasing you to probation and parole.
Amazing.
And it was mixed emotions at that point, because I was like, all right, did he even forget? Maybe he forgot who I even was. Like, this is everyday work for him. He sees so many cases. Did he forget that he literally looked me in the eye and said, you're pretty much a menace to society, and I want to lock you up? And then, like, did you not mean that? And so I was grateful. I was like, I'm going home. But there was also this, like,
confused.
Bro, you just sent me through, like, a whirlwind.
Yeah. Well,
and maybe I just wanted some sort of, like, acknowledgement from him more than, hey, you did a great job. Like, I think I was expecting
you're not going to get
something more deep.
Yeah. And of course I didn't get that. And so that is what it is. So then I get released, and now I'm faced with the dragon that is probation and parole, which is a whole other dragon, because now I'm on they put me still on sex offender probation. So there's all sorts of nuances with that. We had to take polygraphs every 90 days to make sure you're not watching. Like, they ask you, have you watched any child pornography? Have you raped anybody? Have you committed any sex offenses?
Yeah,
sure. During Halloween, you can't be at home. You have to go to, like, probation and parole. So I'm in that box. I'm with those guys, and I'm having to walk the line of probation and parole. I can't really be in my identity, because I can't go chase big dreams and goals. I've still got to show up to my probation hearings. I can't leave the state. Yep. So there was that. Like, I was motivated, and now I'm like, I'm out, I'm on the streets, but then it's still like all the wind was kind of knocked out of my sails, because now I met my probation officer. She told me all the things I can and can't do. Now all the pressure that's again on my shoulders, because now you fuck probation and parole back. Now what happens? Back to that 9 years in prison that's still hanging over my head that entire time I'm on parole.
Okay.
So I gotta say, like, in terms of, the evolution of my healing, my coming to terms with all this, it was really slow. It was a slow burn, and it didn't happen overnight. And it definitely didn't happen until after probation and parole, which was 5 years later. So to lead up to the big climactic thing with Chad, something you also don't know is he actually got out first. He got out. He was released.
He fucked up. He went back. And
he hung himself because he knew what was going to happen. Yeah. So he violated probation. I don't even remember what the violation was. I mean, it was something small, but he was going to have to go back in front. So when we were on probation and parole, we obviously weren't allowed to see each other at all at that point. Our probation officer said, you guys are not allowed to, talk. You cannot be a support system for one another. I really knew very little what was going on, but he was only out for like 6 months, and he just chose
the wrong path.
I think, and I don't even know. I don't remember the degree at which he chose the wrong path, but he got a violation, and he had to go back in front of the judge, and he chose not to go back in front of the judge. And he took his own life. He hung himself with a microwave, actually. So the cord to a microwave. He found a way to hang himself in his jail cell.
I can't even imagine. Damn.
So that's. I got the call from my mom. She said Chad killed himself. And I said, what? Wait, what? Like,
wow.
And she said he had gotten violated. He went back to jail, and he killed himself. And it took me like a couple weeks to really process that. I didn't cry right away. I didn't even understand it. You lose people, but when it's like, when there's been so much camaraderie and you have so much history together, it was just weird to know he was gone off the face of this planet all of a sudden. Someone I was sharing all this experience with. It was like we were sort of in this together, even if it was unspoken, even if we couldn't hear each other. It's like Chad knows I'm going through the same thing he's going through, and same for him.
This
and
is
that was
tragic.
sort of a support for me.
This is heartbreaking. It's tragic.
And you'd shared in your talk one of your greatest regrets was you didn't get to thoroughly communicate.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I didn't. I would say I unspokenly forgave Chad. Like when I saw him again.
In terms of your kindness to him.
It was kindness. There was love, but
You didn't spell it out.
I don't think deep down I think I still blamed him. You know, it was still like,
of course you did it.
hey man, we're here, but like why did you do that? Like all the time and energy spent into fighting for our truth, and like so that was still in me up until he died. Like there was a part of me that did have resentment for his decision.
I get it, man.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the guilt that I speak of in my speech, it's like maybe he didn't feel that. Maybe he didn't feel that animosity. Maybe he felt like I still loved and forgave him. But I knew deep down, like...
If you could wind it back, what would you have told him?
I just think that we're all human, man. And that
Like, I get it.
I get it. And that I love you. And like,
It'll be okay.
don't think it was the right decision, but I can always still love you in that right decision. Just like I can love my child, and we can love anybody around us in their imperfectness. Yeah. It was just another imperfect action that had really big results, and it was like, and it wasn't. And then the fact that he pled the fifth meant the world to me.
Yeah, there was that action.
There was that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I've lived with some extreme guilt. Part of it, the majority of it's just survivor's guilt. You know, I'm the one who survived.
You are the survivor.
Chad didn't, so there's been that guilt, that scar tissue that I cope with, and there's also...
Bro, this ends so many ways. The way it ended for you is rare.
Yeah.
Like, you're a rare one.
And you get to see, like you touch on the duality of that. I get to be a beacon of, hey, man, two guys, same circumstances, two completely different outcomes.
Yeah.
And it sucks that Chad that this was a decision, and that's how we teach that lesson. But it's like, I'm going to fucking keep teaching that lesson. Yeah. You know? Because Chad sent a message, too, in what he did. And it's and I'm going to keep sending my message.
Yeah. This is great. It's cool to know where you're at now. You got this beautiful little girl. You just got married to a beautiful girl. You're successful. You've somehow managed to take all the pain and turn it into progress. That's a whole nother podcast, sort of connecting those dots. But that story's powerful, man. Like, you know, the next chapter of your life takes a whole nother 2 hours to really digest of how you started figuring out momentum. Maybe we save that for a different time. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm super proud of you, man. This is like it's one of the hardest stories to hear. And what's cool is I knew you for all that time, and I didn't know this was festering in your soul. Yeah. And now that I know it, I'm like, bro, let's bring this to the light. And that's what we're doing.
And I do want to touch on that, you know, because is the fact that it, you know, just like you said, this was something that I left unturned for many years. You know, it was like
you did.
I was in survival mode. I wanted to. There was, of course, the part of me how do I someday redeem myself, whatever. But that wasn't all I wanted to do was survive, find peace again.
Sure.
So it was like let's
we
put this
all
behind us.
Can imagine.
So 5 years on parole, you know, probation and parole. I get through that, and then I just sort of took life head on. I started establishing my businesses and my success and everything, but there was always this baggage that I never, I mean, until this last year, and with the help of you guys and my other spiritual coaches and mentors, Jonathan Heston, huge shout out to him. That guy's been in my corner helping me understand, like, you know, self-love, because self-love through all this is like, I think I embodied some of that judgment and that narrative that was put on me. How could you not? To a degree, lose confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people that self-love part that you just touched upon is the thing that's holding them back from everything worthwhile in life? People ask this question: am I worthy? Am I worthy to speak up? Am I worthy to help anybody? Do I have any value?
The thing that really blew me away in your talk too is when you read that letter your daughter wrote, and the capacity, it kind of gets me emotional. Like,
what can we end maybe with that? Do you have that letter by chance with you?
Do you have that?
Is there a way to pull that up?
I could
it would
maybe
just
find a way
just
to
for a
pull it up.
10-year-old to reflect back to her father, because she knows the whole story.
You could give the spirit of what your daughter wrote you and kind of connect that dot all these years later. I mean, that says a lot.
Yeah, that story. And you know, I think there's like a part 2 down the road if you want to get to know Alex, his real estate business investments. There's just so many opportunities to coach with Alex.
But that's not what
really... Your daughter, though, that
this
as
is
a
the
father,
shit.
like... she knows the story, and I was just so moved by it. Like her capacity to reflect back what you are to her.
Yeah. We always ask, like, where's the real money? Like, this is the real money.
Dude, yeah.
What did she, her words, you can't probably remember verbatim, but tell us about that. And you had like a premonition of having a daughter or something. Yeah.
Well, so what had happened was well, the letter, to summarize the letter that I wrote, read at the end of my talk that I gave, sort of the essence of my talk was finding lightness in the darkness, finding light in the dark, which, again, it comes from getting in rooms like these, because I didn't understand the power of my message. I didn't understand the power of my testimony, and then giving my speech and Man on a Mission and getting the feedback and stepping into the light and getting a taste for, how do I get real clear on the value that's tucked deep within this? Like you said, we all have our pain story, but we all have not everyone finds the value within it. Not everyone finds a way to leverage it. And this is new for me, guys. Like, I sort of just moved on with life. And when this subject would get brought up, I would talk about it. People would say, hey, I saw this article. And I'd be like, yeah, here's what happened. But to be speaking of it to this capacity and to be on podcasts and to have the love and support from you guys, I just, to those listening, it's like, that's the key. That's the ticket, is get around people who pull that out of you, whether it's the chaplain or your pastor or your minister or guys like Eric and Matt or Jonathan, because this has been a long, long fucking process, and I'm just at the infancy of understanding how to leverage it.
And I'm with you right now.
And it's like a spiritual responsibility. You kind of, given where you stand, you owe it. You have to live your life communicating this.
Yeah, and he just said all of our names, but you got to add your name to this now. Like, you now are that person that you admire in others. Now you get to go be that, and you get to use this to impact, and it is very profound.
And it was like I was telling Matt, before this, that my entire following leading up to this has been real estate based, in the real estate community. Yep. So then now,
would they accept this?
But now, so yeah, exactly. So now I start speaking, and I'm watching how this is like,
it's all integrates.
Padding my other businesses. It complements everything, because when you step into authenticity, when you step into truth, and that was my power. I had it from the beginning, and then you guys helped me go back to that. I'm like, dude,
this
standing in your truth.
Yeah, you want the best businessman in life. Get around someone who's been on the bottom, and they're on the straight and narrow again, like a guy or had a bottom or some kind of experience, like when you said you're like out, like you have a taste of life, or I'm not, like when your prayer to God, like, all right, God, if I get out of this,
yes, freedom.
I'm gonna value this freedom and be a steward of it to the max.
And I've embodied that.
You have, bro. Like, that's what's moving about it. Like you have a taste that other people don't taste because they haven't touched that low or been in that circumstances. And if people can leave this conversation like, but your life's precious, man.
That's where the power's at. That's where the effectiveness is. So two people I greatly admire, Tim Grover, I asked him basically the same question about like the best in class. What is the thing? And he used the word darkness. And then Ben Newman, who was just on our podcast, did this, basically, asking the same question, and he called it the burn. That's that thing that people have that they bring to the surface of how they communicate, what energy they leave in a room, how they pour into others. And like, you have that, and it's such a valuable gift. So instead of hiding from it, to build a brand around it, with impact being as the primary source of what you're really after, like, let me be the one to tell you, because this is just a byproduct, and I get to be the one to tell you this now. The universe will reward you in incredible ways. It'll create opportunities, and all those opportunities turn to money. They turn to influence, and influence and attention turns to dollar bills. It turns to demand, and demand turns into a bank account, which will allow you go be more deadly in life. Deadly in a really beautiful way. You get to go impact, and you're going to be dangerous, because people that command large audiences are dangerous. Like, in one of the most beautiful ways. Like, you want to be dangerous. This is Michael Jordan shit, man. Like, but most people don't see themselves in that light, that they're inspiring the world. They're impacting the world. Do you know what I mean?
Beautiful.
The other thing too, it takes communicating about it to sort out like the kernel of your message for the world.
You'll tighten it up.
Like, I would imagine, my impression of you is like, you're just getting started
100%.
This
in
is all,
articulating.
It takes time, yeah.
Yeah,
just
like
now you're
how you could serve, where you could serve,
gas pedal
the
down,
lanes
now.
you could serve in,
and that's where I'm here. Yeah, again, I'm just beginning to understand like I mentioned, you know, the power in this message, and
Pain to
I think I
purpose.
needed the beauty of it all. Like I say, there's beauty in all the pain, but it was like one of the big things is I needed an ego check. I had so much potential. That young me had a lot of potential, but I was also like creating a lot of destruction. I was selfish. I was naive.
yeah.
And what, like you touched on, the biggest lever in being successful is value, adding value and service. And it was like, I didn't know anything about that. And I don't know that I would have learned about it unless I got into a situation that I had to get real on.
Yeah.
And
what
humility.
life was about. Humility.
Humility. Like, I trust you because of your humility. You've been humbled in ways.
That's why I always say that vulnerability is a superpower, because it quickly bridges the gap to trust. And when you have trust, you have something that is really hard to get, and it's really rare, and it's actually very valuable. What you do with that trust is important. That's where character comes in. It's important to be a really strong, holeless human that has a lot, like you're willing to die for the shit that is right in life. And those are the people that change the world. And this is really cool, but this is where power exists. You know what I mean?
I want to say, I'm glad you used that word, like powerlessness. Like, there's a humility in owning your powerlessness in it, in a way that opens up how powerful you can be. It's like weird. That's a whole podcast into itself, how those are linked. Like, you say vulnerability all the time, Eric, like how your vulnerability, which is kind of a sense of powerlessness.
Most people are afraid of it.
But it opens up, power is defined as capacity to act in Webster's. So the more you could touch into, I believe, your powerlessness and just humbly, Lord, I can't, if it weren't for that chaplain, if it weren't for this, where in the world would I be? Boy, that now you could serve and contribute, and it's all like mixed.
Yeah, and you have like two choices really. You either give or you take in life. And a lot of people that don't do much in life, they kind of just take. And I hate to be the one that points it out, but you really don't do anything. You just kind of bitch a lot. Like, I don't want to be that kind of person. I want to be a creator. And the best people in life that have left the best impacts in the world, they're creators. They create. They're entertaining. They're placing out value. They're making you laugh. They're causing an emotion in you. Yeah, like they're in love with their craft, and they're performing at the highest levels. And there's all the barbarians and all the people in the sidelines that are watching. Like, the arena is what a great metaphor for life. You want to be the person in the arena that's putting out products and services.
And I'll just say, Alex is our friend locally and stuff, but. I mean, to be a full steward of your assets in that creation, you're a good-looking guy. You know, check him out. Google him a bit. He's got IMDb. He acted in some films. Yeah. He's a model.
But that's not it.
But you talk about this. Like, be a steward. That's a gift. He's articulate. He's a good-looking mug. The whole package. And I just hope people follow you. Follow you. I'm following you now with expectation.
That's my point. There's a lot of pressure on you now.
And I love it, man. Keep that pressure. I've always operated from it's like.
It's cool to hear someone like that you admire say, "Hey, you're top 5." I know you admire me, and like I admired Ed, and I got some validation from him as well.
You weren't lying. It's true.
It's contagious, man. You second you see yourself in that light, like, oh, I could be on the stage impacting millions of people like my boy Ed. That just happens to be one person that I've been close to that I can leverage that self-belief feeling around. Whether it's true or not, it's really irrelevant. I believe that he believes it, but that validation's powerful. Like, getting around people and like leaving it all on the table and getting them to see you and then getting them to challenge you to do more with it. That's the type of pressure container that's a unique cycle that now I think I'll be attracting for the rest of my life. Dude. And I'm going to challenge you to attract that same cycle in your life. There's a lot of people that stay in a small cycle. Little impacts, you deserve big impacts. So you have to go seek it out. Like, you have to be a steward of all the opportunities that are going to come with this. You have to go hunt it down, be ferocious, and there's going to be a lot of insecurities along the way. But that's where you need a why that's more powerful than your insecurities. And when you believe in it and you build a brand around it and you put systems and processes in place and you write the check, the world will respond in kind. But like, all of this is a game at the end of the day. And you have something that most people don't. You have a story that moves people. And you've built a life and a foundation that is really unique and rare. Like, so now, like, you have all these deadly components, and you're right, you look good, all these things that are actually small potatoes, but they actually, a lot of people can use those to rise to the top.
It's just another responsibility.
Yeah, you got it all. You have it all. And the other thing I'll add with it and that sentiment is you can have it all. Like, literally, you can have it all. Who the hell said you can't? You're never going to quite get to the best version of yourself. You never should want to get to the best. Journey. No, you're always evolving, climbing new peaks, new experiences, new impacts. But at the end of the day, your trajectory is like I mean, it's
just
top 1% in the world
some
trajectory.
Mom whose kid's in prison. There will be someone out there. If she gets wind of this,
Yeah.
just like sweetheart,
It's
just
never
listen
ending.
to this.
It's never ending.
I mean, just think of one.
You're also a model for guys that are at different parts of the story that you have that you can affect in a way that I can't. And I know I can still affect them myself with my story. We can all affect to some degree, but yours is going to resonate a little differently.
There's authority.
You know what I mean?
In his experience.
But people, there's parts of my story I've never even revealed, like where I was facing some heavy shit too. I just never needed to go there really. But now you made me want to go there. I had some bad years in my life, really bad years. They're like cloudy for me. Now you make me want to fucking bring it all out, baby.
Yeah.
Like I have nothing to fear. You know what I mean? Like you inspire me to leave it all on the table. Like, do you know what I mean? I left a lot of it on the table, but like there's a lot more there. Like, thank you, Alex. This is cool shit though. Like this is how
where can people follow you and all that?
Yeah, the best thing's on Instagram, just Alex Donnolo. I have most of my links on there, which will get you to my website. You can see all my content and all my opportunities to connect with me. But yeah, man, and again, if there's an opportunity, because this is new for me, coming and speaking.
Would you like
on the
to
real
speak
estate
again?
world.
You
yeah,
should
of
speak.
course. If there's opportunities, there's already some flourishing. Sean Kingsbury, we've been talking about me maybe helping speak to some of his guys transitioning out of the prison system. Like what a great, for me to be instilling hope in them as they're about to go get faced with more, more judgment from the workplace, from everything, right?
In this early process of you, until you really build in the systems and processes and the real momentum, just kill yourself and say yes to everything right now. Go out and be a Brahmable.
100%.
Like go break shit. Like you don't need to have it perfect.
Because I'm going to be a steward to
create
not
scar
only
tissue.
God's grace, but also like the feedback that I'm getting is telling me like,
we could slow it down and be methodical once there's so many opportunities that you can't possibly say yes to.
And hold in mind, be open and speak to all, because it's not only like former inmates, but like don't go to prison in order to discover this. You don't need to.
100%.
That's why it's when people go to like the Arctic, they're exploring something. They give us a gift, so we don't have to go to prison to.
No, it's
finesse
relatable.
We all have our pain.
It's relatable on many different levels. Yeah, it's good, bro.
I love you guys.
Thank you, Alex.
I'm so grateful for you guys. And yeah, I'll just say, I think the biggest message for me is just not giving up, because the clarity I think will come, but it didn't come for me for years, bro. Like I didn't know how to be grateful but it was like, I just didn't fucking give up. And with that, then you find the clarity, then you find the power. Eventually it will come.
Yeah, amen. Yeah.
It's just,
man, bro, don't fucking quit.
If all you're clear about is
you don't have to have all the answers right now. Hey,
exactly.
be grateful, get your mission in place. It's like, just fucking keep going.
Yeah.
Just handle the next few hours or the next day.
Day by day by day.
I still like the thing I visualize of being a Brahmable in a china cabinet. Most people in life think they got to have figured out, and they want to go in there perfect, not break shit. Just get in there and be bad. Because in the process of breaking all the little figurines and all the little glass, you're in a china cabinet. What's in a china cabinet? Yeah. Weird ass shit that's ugly anyway. Just break that shit. And as you reconstruct it, that's where you'll put in systems and processes. You'll find your voice. You'll build scar tissue. So many people are afraid to get in the game because they think they got to know it all. And it's so hard to know it all until you start just going through it, where you always realize it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. Because there's always fear trapped around doing profound things that are scary. At least for me, I'm constantly scared and not feeling comfortable. And I just go break shit now. I became really habitual at like just jumping into shit. I don't give a fuck what anyone tells me. Yeah. It just works. And it makes me such an actionary human that now has demand. And like what I do with it now is going to be fun. Like, now I'm
prepared for that failure. If there is a failure, you use it as a stepping stone.
It's a win. To fail is to win. You can't. Like, I don't think I can lose. It's either I learn or I win.
Yeah, you don't have anything to lose.
100%.
Let's go, baby.
Love it, man. Thank you guys. So
awesome.
blessed.
Man on a mission, babe.
I'm a man on a mission.